My brother and I always joke that for every life situation, there's always an appropriate still game reference or episode. Something will happen, and without missing a beat, one of us will say, "I like the PlayStation. Do you like the PlayStation?" Or, "You're putting the beef on, Jack." You get the idea. The magic of still game is in its relationships. It's the way that the characters, all of them, show up for each other, even when they argue or bicker, because when the chips are down, they have each other's backs, always. And isn't that what we long for? To know that no matter what, that we are not alone and that we belong. Sometimes watching the show, I forget that these characters aren't real, because they're too real. They remind us of the people we know, the people that we gather with, the people who make up our communities, our churches, and our lives. There's Jack and Victor, one sharp and sarcastic, the other nostalgic and reflective. They're so different from one another, but somehow they need each other, because that's how communities work. We bring our quirks, our pasts, and our edges, and somehow in the middle of it all, we find connection. And then there's Isa, that one person who knows exactly everything that's taken place and going on. Every church has an Isa, someone who's too invested, but always, always caring. There's Winston, always complaining about absolutely everything, but when it matters, he shows up. He's strong and loyal, and he's always there. And then there's Naveed. He's opinionated, sarcastic, with a razor-sharp wit. Every church has a Naveed as well. But underneath it all, he too is deeply invested in the people around him. Because real community isn't about sameness, it's about difference. It's about how all of these people, all their personalities and all their stories come together and make something bigger than the sum of their individual parts. That's what makes a community. That's what makes a church. It's what makes any neighborhood or any family. Imperfect people sharing imperfect lives, and somehow in the mess of it all, discovering grace. Our reading today from Matthew is really about how best to live in community with one another. Jesus is talking and he says, "You've heard it said, you shall not murder. But I tell you, if you're angry with someone, if you insult them, if you hold on to that resentment, you're in danger." Jesus takes something that seems so clear, like don't kill people, and he pulls us in deeper. It's not just about murder. It's about how we treat one another. It's about the words we say, the grudges we hold, the bitterness that we let simmer, and it's about the walls we build between us and them. We can walk into a room and refuse to make eye contact. We can ghost someone, pretend that they don't exist, withhold kindness just to prove a point, because we can be alive and still destroy each other with our words. And then there's this word raka. It's an ancient insult. It can mean empty-headed, worthless, or good for nothing. We have our own versions of that word raka, don't we? We might not say raka, we might say, "Oh, they're such an idiot. What a loser. They're not worth my time." We use words that cut people down, that strip them of dignity, and that can leave them feeling so small. And there are times when we don't have to use words at all. We can dismiss people with a look, with silence, with an eye roll, with a comment muttered under our breath. And Jesus says that this matters. It's not just enough to avoid doing something big like murder. Jesus is interested in what's going on in the inside of us. He's saying, if you have something against someone, if there's tension, if there's unresolved pain, go, be reconciled. Do what you can to make it right. Because we all know what it's like to carry around anger like a heavy weight. It drains us, it consumes us, it keeps us from being fully present and fully alive. And God, he hates when his children don't get along. If you're a parent, you instinctively know this. You've seen your kids fight, knowing how much better life would be if they just worked it out and got along with one another. And God feels that too. This isn't just about individual relationships, though. It's about community. Because we weren't made to do this alone. We were made for each other, to lift each other up, to carry one another's burdens, and to remind each other of who we really are. A strong community doesn't just happen, it's built. It's built on kindness, on grace, on showing up for one another. It's built when we choose to treat each other the right way, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And that's what church is meant to be, a community, a place where people don't just attend, they belong. A place where reconciliation is real, where forgiveness isn't just talked about, but lived. A place where we practice love, not just in words, but in our actions. So what stops us from those things? What keeps us from reconciliation? It might be fear that if we take the first step, we'll be rejected. It could be the voice of pride that says, I was right, I shouldn't have to be the one that fixes this. It might even be unforgiveness, because sometimes holding on to the grudge feels safer than letting go. But the truth is, the weight that we carry, that resentment, that anger, it doesn't just hurt them, it hurts us. So what do we do with this? We pay attention. We name the grudge. We take the step. We have that conversation, even when it's awkward. And sometimes, reconciliation doesn't mean that everything goes back to the way it was. Sometimes it means we just choose to let go. We choose not to carry that weight anymore, and we choose to be free. So may you take that step towards healing, to have the courage to say the hard things, to extend the hand, and to let go of what's been holding you back. And may we be a people who build a community rooted in grace, in love, and in the kind of relationships that Jesus calls us to. Because this isn't just about them, it's about you and it's about us, and it's about the kind of life that we were made to live together. And here's the beautiful thing. We don't do this alone, because for every time we hold on to anger, for every time we let a grudge take root, for every time we feel the weight of a broken relationship, God steps in. He doesn't leave us stuck. He invites us forward, not with shame and not with condemnation, but with that gentle, persistent call, come, lay it down, let me help you. Maybe today that's the invitation, to release the things that have been eating away at your joy, to open your hands instead of clenching your fists, and to trust that healing is possible, even if it takes time, and even if it looks different from how you expected. Because at the heart of it all, this is the gospel. A love that reaches across every divide, a grace that never runs dry, a God who sees our mess and our brokenness and still moves towards us. So may we be a people who do the same. May we be quick to forgive, bold in love, and unshaken in grace. Because this is what makes a family. This is what makes a church and a community. And this is what makes us whole. Amen.